I mean, I feel like I'm not loading today.
What's the matter, Franks?
Hi, everybody. We're just getting ready to start the podcast. If you can't see me, I don't think you can. I've got my eye mask on because, honestly, it's been a birthday week.
It's been a what?
It's been a birthday week. I am tired this week.
Are you hungover?
Right, okay, everybody who knows me, I hardly ever drink, but when I do, that tequila hits hard.
Well, you need to take your eye mask off for a minute so you can see me. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Frankie. Happy birthday to you. I'll spare you my singing. Would you have to... You have to blow out the candle. That was magic.
Do you know what? This is why I love birthday week. Honestly, the house is full of flowers. There's gifts everywhere. I'm so spoiled. I've got such lovely stepchildren, such a lovely husband, such lovely friends. I'm honestly so spoiled on my birthday week. So thanks, guys. And this is why I'm a little bit hungover this week. I tell you what, I'll take the cat mask off. I'll take the face mask off because I'm still looking pretty glamorous. I'm looking a little bit like I just blew in from last night, a bit of the walk of shame. I've lost an earring. I'm like Cinderella, just the one earring. So if you guys are in Soho and you find an earring hanging around, yeah, that would be mine.
All right, well, let's get going, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Season 2 of the Icebreakers podcast. It is semi-final week here for us at the Icebreakers, but also for, of course, Dancing on Ice tonight. I am joined by the absolutely beautifully fabulous hungover Frankie Seaman. I hope you had a fantastic evening last night.
I mean, we missed you, but yes, we missed you, but not that much because I don't really remember much of it. You could have been there. I don't know. It was a busy week. It's been a busy birthday week for me. And yes, I'm a little bit hungover, but, you know, we're all here for it.
Life goes on. I did send you a couple of photos. I was in Skegness on another job. I mean, so glamorous. But you sent me a video of you at Archer Street at, I don't know, 12:30 at night. And it was you sat by yourself at the booth, just like videoing everybody else on the dance floor. And I kind of felt bad. I was like, where is everybody?
Because I'd been dancing all night. And at that point, I just was like, no, girl, no. Like my feet were killing me. They were screaming. The dogs were barking. And I had to sit down. I mean, even my husband was dancing. Like, what? Hello? Sorry, what? He was giving it the big, goalie dance. My stepson was there. He was on a table somewhere dancing. Our friend Aaron was there. He was like, he's a choreographer, so of course he was dancing and putting us all to shame. And I was just sitting in the corner taking it all in thinking, you know what? I'm 52. Let's do this. Let's rock and roll.
Rock and roll, baby. You look absolutely fabulous, as always. So, solo challenge this week on Dancing on Ice.
Well, first of all, yes, that's correct. But are we going to address some of these rumors that are swirling around social media at the moment that Dancing on Ice has been cancelled?
Well, I was going to say, and I was going to kind of lead into that there is some breaking news with Dancing on Ice. Now, is it confirmed or not? We don't know. But what I was sent from a friend of mine who works in the industry was a tweet from kind of a random account, but it looked like an official tweet, correct?
Yeah.
And
I mean, people don't put it out there unless they're pretty sure, because obviously in this day and age, you have to be very careful what you say.
Yeah. And basically, it was rumored that this is now the last season of Dancing on Ice, the last series, due to low viewing figures, or I should actually pull up it's on my other phone, so I can't get into it. But yeah, and then I dug through the internet. This was probably about 6:00, and I couldn't find anything online. I couldn't find any official source. But then by 7:00, 7:30, it was all over the papers. So rumored, not official. I don't know. I think this goes into another situation where the British media like to sensationalize things. It's a bit dangerous because people's careers are involved. You know what I mean? And it kind of just spoils the whole vibe of we're going into the final here of Dancing on Ice.
I agree with you, but I don't think the British press are going to stand on their laurels with a story like this and go, oh, we don't want to hurt people's feelings. I mean, the time for that was a long time ago. I think, this show has been struggling for a really long time. It's needed a revamp for a really long time. That opportunity has been missed. I think the previous production team that were on the show have probably missed those opportunities. I think the new production team that have come in have done some great things with reformatting it and bringing back some of the older stuff that the fans knew and loved, and also bringing back a few new touches, which I think have gone down very well. But is it too little too late? Well, yeah, it seems that way if that's the case. And it makes me really sad. I'm actually heartbroken if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that where this information came from, we'll probably never know. But it was a little bit coincidental that as soon as the dress rehearsal had finished, that this information came out. So was it a matter of somebody in the studio watching the dress rehearsal was expecting to hear? Because typically series after series after series, at the end of the semifinals, they always say, hey, we're so looking forward to next year. And they didn't today. So is that just somebody reading into it, or did somebody see a script backstage, or I don't know what? I don't know where that would have come from, because there's been nothing officially said by ITV or Dancing on Ice or anybody involved in the show that we know of that has said anything. So I don't know.
But look, in the past we've seen press leaks, multiple press leaks through the Dancing on Ice press office. Some of them have been, a little bit more organized than others, and some of them have not. And if somebody's got a grudge and knows that this is happening, it may be that they were like, you know what, we're going to tell people, because maybe they're as sad as we are about it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. 100%. But
I just hope that they told the professionals before this leaked. I mean, they certainly, a press office would always have some sort of liaison with the press. So if a big story like this was going to be leaked, the press would go to the press officers and say, hey, we've been told on good authority, can you confirm or deny? So whether they confirmed or denied or said no comment, they would definitely have known that this story was going to go to press. And if they haven't told the performers, the judges, the hosts, the skaters, before it's gone out, then that's a real tragedy, because nobody wants to find out that your job's on the line through a leaked press piece. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. No. All right. Well, let's move on to some better news. The show still happened. The semifinal, I thought, was a fantastic semifinal. This edition of the solo challenge, which we'll get into and break down for you guys, because it was a little bit confusing for me, let alone somebody who doesn't understand the skating. We'll get into that. But what I really loved about the opening of this show was the celebs skating out on their own. It was the first time that we've seen their presentation. And I think, given the fact that it was the solo challenge, throwing them out there at the tip top of the show to do their little bow with announcement was, I'm sure, a shock to their systems as well.
There was some shaky stoppings, weren't there? I mean, usually you have your partner to hold on to, and I know as a female partner, sometimes it can be hard to stop your skating partner, your male partner, when they're coming at you that fast. But you always manage to put the brakes on, and you kind of get into a rhythm of knowing when you need to start stopping in order to reach your spot. But they had no idea without their pro partners, and they just kept rolling through it. It was hilarious. Little Anton was like twizzling around over there on the end. So was Michaela.
Yeah. I saw Michaela just from that really wide shot when they pulled back. It was like this. She just kept spinning around trying to get herself to stop. So it was cute to see. It was, and again, we're now seeing them in their full ability of what they have learned technically with the skating when they don't have their professional with them. So it was really, it was nice to see. It was a nice little, treat to start the show off with. Also, really interesting, which I don't think they've done before yet on the series, is they had the judges, each individual judge, work with each individual couple, kind of playing to what that judge's strengths were with that celeb. And I thought it was a nice little element, because we've not seen that before. And, for the celebs as well, to get to work with that judge for the first time when they've only ever known them from behind the judge's desk was really nice to see. And it created this kind of cool environment for each performance.
Well, you're right. We haven't seen each judge work with each couple, but we have seen some of the judges bop in and out with certain couples throughout the series. And we always felt, didn't we? We said that was we thought that was a little bit unfair. So I think you're right. This time to see each couple have a judge with them was interesting. And I thought the way they played it off, because some of them, or some of the time, they brought in the judge. They sort of paired up the judge with the couple that had maybe been the most critical of them from the week before. So I thought that
Yep.
was really interesting to kind of like have to, as a judge, to have to face that out and say, well, I was critical of you. This is what I said. This is why. Now let's get to it and work on it. And actually, that's the most productive you can be with criticism. Like the actually epitome of being a judge is standing by your words, standing by what you said, but then also saying, but I can help you make it better, which I thought was a really lovely, touching element. You're right. And it helped them to all connect as well as a team.
Absolutely, for sure. Now, the solo challenge consisted of 5 elements that they were given. The first one being a spin, the second one being a jump, the third one being a spiral, which is when you skate forwards or backwards with one leg in the air. The
Some
fourth
people call
one
that
was...
arabesque in dance.
Yeah, or an arabesque. The fourth one was a back lunge, which they needed to be executed moving backwards, where you bend down on one leg and the other leg is extended on the ice behind you or in front of you, depending upon direction of travel. And then the fifth one was the unique move, which was a bit of a gray area for some of them. So each of those individual challenges or elements are worth 2 points, which then would give them a total of 10 extra points. So rather than the total score being out of 40, this week we had a total score out of 50.
50. Oh, did I mention I'm 52 this week?
Fitted two. All right, well, let's get into these performances. First to skate was Sam and Molly. Skating to I Want to Break Free. Almost 10s across the board. Ashley Odie gave him a 10. Jane gave him a 9.5. Chris gave him a 10. And then his solo elements totaled up to be 9 points, so a total of 48.5. So Chris made an absolutely hilarious comment, which I don't even think he realized and or recognized, but the first things out of his mouth, he said, Sam, you know you've always been really good on your knees.
Now, that is a different show.
I think, because obviously I write down all the, what the judges say, and I had trouble finishing my notes because I was just laughing at that. And what he meant by that was he's always really good when he's down on his knees. Like, he's got great knee bend, and then he did the lunge where the knee is bent. He didn't give him full credit for his challenge due to the fact that his arabesque or spiral wasn't quite at hip level. Now, what we mean by that is, if you're watching this, you can obviously see me. But when that foot is in the air, and this is the ice here, the foot is in the air behind you, it needs to be at hip level, and Sam's was a little bit lower. Now, what we also saw then with some of the other male celebrities is that their foot wasn't at hip level either. So I think it's a flexibility issue, especially for the male contestants. Females tend to be a little bit more flexible, but he was definitely docked off of that. Ashley said the quality was the best of the series, and Jane said that she took a 0.5 off for the difficulty of footwork and the handhold that they had, because they were in a butterfly handhold. Now, I wasn't quite sure how I felt about that deduction, because he was doing something that was technically so much harder than anybody that's been on the ice this week. But then she docked him because it wasn't as good as she thought it should be. Do you know what I mean?
Do you know what? First of all, let's circle back around to that spiral or the arabesque or whatever you want to call it. And they said it wasn't at hip height. His leg was perfectly straight. His arms and his shoulders were in perfect alignment. For the boys, he did the best spiral out of all of them. He's the best skater in terms of his technique and his natural ability. So for them to dock him a full point for that, I thought was very unfair, particularly as he skated first. But we saw, and the judges would already have known, what was coming after him in terms of the other boys' spirals. So I don't think you could compare apples to apples, because some of the other boys would have got 1 point for their spiral as well. And they were completely crooked and offline. So I think that was very unfair. I would have given Sam a 10 for his technical. If you're going to give anybody a 10 for his technical, it would have been Sam. And I don't know why they didn't. And then, yeah, Jane's little comment about, she said he got a bit sticky in his footwork. Well, I mean, did he? I don't know.
I mean, it was a bit sticky, but the footwork itself was 10 times harder than anybody else that competed this week, right? So, and also to circle back around to that spiral, that arabesque, his
Because we're
foot,
skaters and that's what we do. We just circle around.
yeah. If you go back and watch the record, look what his foot position was. You can actually see him as he picked his leg up, turn his toe up and pointed it. And I went, that's like what a professional skater would do. So he obviously was told by Molly exactly what to do with that element, and he executed it perfectly.
I agree with you. And also, you know, he's a 30-something-year-old man or late 20s. I'm not sure how old he is, but he's around that age. You're not going to get to that level of flexibility possibly ever in your life now at this point if you haven't done that from being very young. So for them to take that into account, I think is ridiculous. You know, women are childbearing, so we have more open hips anyway and tend to work on flexibility. We tend to do yoga and Pilates, whereas men tend to lift weights if they're going to be fit at all or have any kind of health well-being routine. And of course, to ask them to do that in 1 week to get more flexible, I thought it was unfair across the board for all the boys. So yeah, I didn't like the fact that they docked him. Out of all of the spirals, his was by far the best. So if anything, he should have gotten the 2 points.
Absolutely. I thought personally his routine was so smooth. Like I felt like this week I didn't get the nervous twitch of like, oh gosh, is he going to trip? Is he going to trip? Because he has been consistently inconsistent with his routines. And this week, the funny thing is the creative that they had with the what looked like they were inside of a room, right? A living room or something. And then they projected the carpet on the floor. And the beginning was so good, it made me forget about the ice and the set until they pulled out to this wide shot with the cameras and he skated around the edge by the tunnel. And as he was skating back towards the center of the ice, I said out loud, I was like, oh my God, watch out for the carpet. Because it looked like there was carpet there. And I was so enthralled with how smooth and how confident that he was with this, that it was really, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. It was a perfect time for him to step up and kind of find that consistency within his skating.
Now, I have skated to I Want to Break Free. I skated to it in 2007. I think it was a prop week, and I think we didn't have a Hoover. We had a brush or something, or something like that. I can't remember, but I've skated to I Want to Break Free anyway. And it's a bit of a mid-tempo beat for me. It's not really a very thrilling piece. So the fact that Dino went in during the VT and helped him to find this character, I agree with that because it is very difficult to find it. In the music video, obviously, Freddie Mercury is dressed as a bored housewife, doing a bit of cleaning and wants to break free of this monotonous life. So it is a tricky story to tell. I did think they kind of did him a little bit dirty with it. I don't think it was the most interesting or characterful piece anyway. Sam said he struggled to find that character. Dino obviously helped that. I think it was a bit forgettable. His skating was sublime, superior actually to everybody else that we saw tonight, because everybody else was a little bit nervy and trippy. But the characterization itself, the story itself, I thought was a little bit bland.
No, you're right. I absolutely agree with that. I think it helped him being first because of that. Because the following three couples that followed Sam and Molly had really strong characterized performances, right? So, yeah, no, I totally agree. It would have been a really difficult routine, not to choreograph, but to perform, because it's like, well, what am I? Who am I in this number? What am I trying to project? Other than, oh, I'm just going to be happy, and now I've got to go do this solo performance, right?
With a Hoover, with pyros.
I mean, I have to say, a guilty pleasure of mine is hoovering.
Oh, please come visit anytime you like.
I absolutely love to vacuum.
Oh, I spent about 20 minutes hoovering stone. I was furious.
All right, let's move on.
Oh my God. No. We're not moving on until we talk about the fact that Dino forgot to put in the scores for the technical elements. Just completely forgot. And then nearly swore. I thought he was going to swear on air. And he went, oh, flipping heck.
Yeah.
It was my best Dino moment so far. Thank you, Dino.
Love that. All right. Well, Dan and Vanessa skated second to beautiful track from Callum Scott, Dancing on My Own. Judges loved it-ish. Ashley gave him a 9.5. Odie gave him a 10. Jane and Chris both gave him 9s. And his solo score, his technical score for that solo section was a 6. Ouch, that hurt. Now, you could see as well when he skated over to the Kiss and Cry afterwards that he was disappointed when he saw those scores, right?
Well, what I thought was really interesting was at the top of the show, we talked about the solo challenge, and everybody came out and said there's 5 elements, the spin, the spiral, the jump, the individual piece, and then the backwards drag. Great. So you can either choose to do all 5 elements, or you can choose to eliminate 1 or 2 of them and just focus on doing a couple cleanly. Well, he chose not to do the spiral because clearly he was terrible at spirals. And again, we talk about male flexibility and he's never going to be able to master that in a week. So they decided to just nix that on the head, but then they really super penalized him for it. So I feel like actually there wasn't a choice. You actually should have tried at least to do all of the elements. Otherwise, if anything was to go wrong during your routine as well, you've already docked yourself 2 points and possibly more if something went wrong in one of the other elements.
No, I think that's a really interesting point because the fact that they gave them the choice to eliminate some of them just didn't. Why?
No, it's a competition.
Yeah, it's a competition. Set a challenge and try it.
Yeah, and you don't get to, in competition, you don't get to pick and choose what you want to compete with. Like when we do competitions in real life ice skating, these are the set elements and just off you go, do your best, and you have to compete against everybody else. If you suddenly decide to eliminate some, I just think, well, why are we even here? Just don't bother then.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that.
He was completely shell-shocked, I think, by last week's skate off. You could tell in his VT that he'd been flying high for so long, and I think perhaps it was a little bit unfair to Danessa, as I like to call them, Dan and Vanessa, that they've been getting such high scores. Sometimes I feel he's been a little bit overmarked, and then I think last week it was a real kind of reality check to probably get more realistic scores and then end up in the skate off. I think it was a big eye opener for him.
Well, I think you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. Like, has Dan plateaued? And this is what happens, right? When you get to week 6 and you're not getting any better. He was still great. I'm not saying that he wasn't a great skater. He was. And he really took on the challenge of learning how to skate. But when you get to this point now and it's not getting any better and the rest of the pack is catching up with you, you either have to take this challenge on, not talking about the solo challenge, but the fact of continuing each week to raise your own game. And if that skate off knocks you back, your confidence, you got to come back fighting. And I think this week he didn't.
And we know that Vanessa James is great because we saw her last year. So whatever you may think about new pros coming on and you might think, oh, maybe she, didn't have the tricks in the back. We know because of the work that we saw her do last year with Greg Rutherford before he got injured, that she's got some incredible tricks and that she was prepared and actually able to teach those tricks to somebody. So I feel that, in this case, we can't even say, oh, perhaps he wasn't challenged enough, he wasn't pushed enough. I think his actual level of ability had reached its peak. And I think we saw that a few weeks ago. And I think, Dan has done really well. And I applaud him, but he's done really well to get to the semifinals. Absolutely.
No, for sure. I think I wrote down for his performance, it was smooth, it was solid, but it was a bit slow. I think it's that dichotomy of when it's a slow piece of music that you have to skate slow. And personally, for me, when it's the slower the music, the faster the speed across the ice, as it should be, right? And I think the judges really applauded him on his characterization or artistic elements of, like Odie said, that he finally found the breath and the extension within those movements. And I completely agreed. We've been saying this for weeks with him. And interestingly, Jane really saw the difference between, well, I think we all did, the difference between his solo sections, but then the section that he was with Vanessa. It was like 2 completely different skaters.
Yeah, he had a lot more confidence when he was with Vanessa, and he was really focused then on that connection, on making us believe it. But when we looked at his solo skate, you're right, it was like a separate piece. It was a ropey 2-foot spin. I mean, it wasn't great. The backward drag, he was on his toe, which is very dangerous because if you stick that leg out behind you, but you hit your toe pick, you can trip yourself up. So he was just barely on the edge of completing that. He was very lucky actually not to trip himself up. He did a very small jump. I mean, I think it was a toe loop. There was no spiral, as we said. And the back drag was very poor. So, and his unique maneuver. Do you want to talk me through that? Because I missed it. I had to text you. I was like, where was this unique maneuver? You had to point it out to me. I had to rewind and have a little look.
So he chose to do, this is what I'm assuming, because again, unless it was mentioned in the VT, you really didn't know what they were doing. And the only thing that I saw that he did on his own that looked a bit unique was that 2-foot skid slide that does like half a rotation as he came around just before Vanessa came back onto the ice to join him for the second half of their couples skate. And I mean, to be fair, it's a difficult thing to do, to be able to do a skid stop that actually doesn't stop and it continues movement with rotation. So I thought it was interesting. I mean, we've not really ever seen that before with a celeb. I certainly haven't. I thought in comparison to some of the other celebs' unique moves, yeah, it didn't have the difficulty of a hydro glide or that Michaela did, right?
The header. It didn't set the ice on fire, that's for sure. I just think he had moments of greatness. There was a point during his solo skate where the music crescendoed and he kind of almost ran into this big power skating. But it was just forward skating, obviously. But it was kind of cool. Like there were moments of greatness and moments that you thought, oh, he's really going to go for it. And then I think overall, he probably is about where he should be. I wouldn't say he was overmarked or undermarked. I think he was about kind of where he should be.
I personally, I missed the fire.
Yeah.
I wanted to see, it's the semifinals. If you want to get to that final, you got to show us you want to be there. And I felt with him, and maybe, like you said, maybe it was just the fact that he was shook from the skate off, being in the skate off last week.
Plus, I think, he's not a big character, is he? Like we've seen this throughout all the weeks. They've given him some very stylized routines, so it's been easy to kind of put the costume on and be in that, inhibit that character. But he himself is not a big character, so I think when you do a slow piece, that can be quite exposing too. So maybe we didn't quite, as much as he worked on that connection and worked on that emotion and power, perhaps we didn't quite feel it because it's kind of maybe a little too late. Yeah,
no, for sure. And I must mention too, Frankie, did you notice that they put loops on his trousers?
Well, now here's the thing. We are going to get into all of this on the lookbook with Alexander Schauman this week. So we are going to be here for you dissecting all of the looks and all of the tips and tricks. But why don't you tell us all about his little loops, Matt?
Well, no, that was for you because you guys talked about it last week or the week before about how to keep the gentlemen's or ladies' trousers down over the skates by putting an elastic loop between the blade and the boot, that space that's in between the two. So when you do an extension of the leg or you go down into the ice by bending your knees, that your trousers don't come up and get caught over the top of your skating boots. And I saw the loop there and I was like, they called it.
And it's been a huge bugbear for you. You asked us to speak about that last week because you were so furious about the amount of trousers you saw flapping about, and I completely agree with you. So yes, Alexander Schauman and I will be breaking that down on the lookbook and giving that a 10 out of 10 from us.
Amazing. Good. All right, moving on. Skating third was Antoinette. Anton and Annette skating to Ryden solo. I'm going to go through the scores in the comments real quick, and then I got a lot to say about this. 9.5.
Just going to dance my way through it.
9.5s across the board. His solo elements got him an extra 7 points for a total of 45 points. Chris said that it was the strongest spin in this series and that his jump was probably about 2 to 3 feet off the ice, which it was amazing. It was great.
Huge.
And Ashley said, which was really nice to hear, that he actually lit up. His face lit up when he went to go do the solo stuff. We don't normally see that. It normally goes the complete opposite. As soon as that professional disappears, the celeb goes into their shell, right?
They usually look like a deer in headlights, right?
Yep. And then Jane really enjoyed the versatility of his skating between every week that they've given him something else to do, and he's really taken on the challenge and has really embraced it. So really well-deserved scores. Now, this is what I'm going to say. As we saw, Anton did a lot of dancing, like actual street dancing. Skaters cannot dance. Skaters have a really hard time dancing on ice.
It's hard. Some of them do.
The vast majority of them do, me included, right? I could do choreography for days, but if you bring in a commercial choreographer, which we'll get into with diversity, if you bring in a commercial choreographer and try and get them to do that on the ice as a professional skater, it just can look really awkward and not very good. But I gotta say, Anton killed it.
Knocked it so far out of the park. He could have been at an actual concert. I was bopping with him. I was feeling whatever it was he was putting down. I was picking it up. It was astonishing. I was like, why didn't they just give him a little dance routine every single week? Just give him the trophy. If it was a dance trophy, give him the trophy. It's called Dancing on Ice. And what was he doing? Dancing. Actual dancing on the ice. It was astonishing. Boy got some rhythm.
Absolutely. And the thing about it is ice skaters can have rhythm. But why it's difficult to actually dance on ice is because of our blades, and our boots are not very flexible. They are there to support your ankle, to hold you up so you don't fall over. And then you put kitchen knives that have, the toe picks at the front of it, and it's just really awkward to stand in the same spot and actually maneuver choreography, as you see that somebody can do on the floor. And I've got to say, his dance moves were 10 out of 10 for me.
I whooped. Literally, I was watching the show and I whooped. And my husband heard me from the other room because he was watching football, obviously. And I was like, whoa! And I think I put on the text, I was like, Anton's going to win it. Literally, it was incredible. He looked so comfortable. It didn't even look like he was focusing. Actually, he looked more comfortable when he was doing the moves that he was doing, the street dance that he was doing, than he did when he had to focus on, perhaps, for example, let's say the spiral, which is one of the arabesque, which is one of the required elements.
Yeah.
It was astonishingly good. I mean, we should talk about his required elements because I've always been a big Antoinette fan. As you know, I've always been rooting for them. I think he's kind of the epitome of what Dancing on Ice should be. You start off with zero confidence and zero ability and zero performance background, and then suddenly you blossom into this amazing, incredible showman. And I think that's what we saw tonight. But actually, his skating elements were not bad either. I mean, he did a really nice spin. His spiral, although, I mean, it was terrible. And again, we need to talk about this in terms of the boys versus the girls, because of course, his whole life, he's got some, I can attest to this, being the wife of a footballer, being a wag, that those boys have some big glutes. So now you have to lift your leg behind you. That glute, that big ass bubble butt, is going to get in the way, and he's never, ever going to be able to get that leg up. I mean, he could, but it would take a good year of training to improve that. So to ask them to do that in such a short space of time, of course, it's never going to happen. So I feel that was a little bit unfair. But his spiral, the actual arabesque itself, he held it almost from one end of the rink to the other. It was so solid and smooth. Not the prettiest thing I've ever seen, but absolutely solid. I mean, his spin was great. His jump, like you said, was through the roof. It was the biggest jump I've possibly seen on Dancing on Ice for a long time. Maybe Chris Fountain, maybe Ray Quinn. The greats had good jumps like that. But that was an incredible effort. But at the beginning of the VT, Matt, they said, oh, we're going to put all of the elements in. Annette said, we're going to put all the elements in. But then we didn't see the back drag, and I thought maybe he'd have forgotten it. But then when we saw him skate again later, he also didn't do the back drag. What happened? I'm sure he's perfectly capable.
I don't know. I guess, yeah, I mean,
it was a full program. They had twizzles, they had the star lift, which was incredible and super smooth and very difficult to do. They had a hip lift, they had a wrist ripper. So I mean, it was a very full program. Maybe they just felt they didn't have time. The overhead cartwheel at the beginning, the flip teapot. There was a lot going on.
There was a lot going on. I think it could have been, again, that flexibility issue, which is why they touched upon it in the VT, why they said that he wasn't very flexible, and maybe that was a mistake in the edit, that they didn't announce that they weren't going to do the back drag.
Okay.
Because
I'll buy that.
Yeah, it wasn't there. So we know that it was for sure choreographed not there, because when he had to do the skate off, it wasn't there the second time. But I have to say, props to him, because that routine, like you just were mentioning, all of the tricks that were in there, he had some great adagio tricks. And Annette, thank you so much for bringing new things to the show, because we have been asking for it for the past 8 weeks. And finally, like it almost looked like we were watching a proper Adagio team out there. Granted, we know that he's only been skating for a couple of months. I'm not saying that he looks professional, but the
Yeah.
tricks that he was doing with the net were very professional tricks.
And super safe and secure. I didn't at one point look at one of his tricks and think, oh, that's going to be, a hard landing. I mean, when he put her down, and the second time when he did the routine, when he put her down from the star lift, he's so careful with her and he's so comfortable with those lifts. I felt like he was born to lift. I mean, his skating, yeah, we've spoken about this as a diamond in the rough. Yes, he is. But his lifting is incredible. And you can tell, I know how long it takes to perfect those lifts. I know how long Annette has been working on those with him. They didn't just decide to do that this week. She's been working with him on those lifts off the ice and then on the ice for weeks on end. And I love to see that each week they're bringing something new. So yes, thanks, guys.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah,
Did you notice at the end he did his unique move was a falling leaf?
yes, yeah. Well, he had the hydroglide as well.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah, so they did it together.
Oh,
in the
yes. Okay,
beginning.
sorry.
But then, yeah, at the end, you guys here in England call it a falling leaf, but we tend to call it a half loop, which is a very difficult jump because you are skating backwards and having to take off without using your toe pick. So it's all about leg strength and edge control when you do something like that. And when he did it, I was like, "Come on, boy."
I know. And then when you land a falling leaf, or as you like to call it, a half loop, you're almost still rotating on your skate as you land. So you have to have a lot of ankle control, a lot of edge control, and be very connected to the ice because that continuous rotation can actually really rip you off your feet. It was brilliant, and nobody even mentioned it.
I know.
I'm not sure I've ever seen a celeb do a falling leaf. Have you?
I thought Chris Fountain did one.
I mean, he did everything, didn't he? Let's face it.
Yeah, he did. He and Ray Quinn for sure.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But again, the greats.
Okay, Michaela and Mark skated last to All By Myself. I'm a huge Celine Dion fan. Let me just say that. But everybody knows that. Of course, tens across the boards. So yeah, the one score off that top mark of 50 at 49 points. The judges pretty much all said that it all came together tonight. And one comment that I do want to highlight is Ashley's comment to say that this was the first week that he felt moved by her. And that says a lot. That says a lot.
Well, has he not been watching the show? I have been moved by Michaela multiple times. And that's not a euphemism, people. I mean, she has done some really beautiful routines, and I feel like she has been consistently undermarked. And I feel like finally the judges got on board and gave her the marks that she deserves. This is the first time he's been moved by her. Where was he on movie week? Like, where was he when she did The Sound of Music? Did he go home?
Well, keep in mind, they're watching it live in front of their faces, and we watch it across television. So I have always said, and this goes back whenever you watch the Olympics, especially in ice skating, when we go back to Tara Lipinski and Michelle Kwan days, now this is going to be like the 1998 or 2002 Olympics. At home, Michelle Kwan won that performance. But if you were in the arena, Tara Lipinski won the performance, and Tara ended up obviously winning the gold medal with that. And I kind of felt with that you kind of had to be in the studio in order to really feel it. I felt it at home. I'm not saying I didn't, but I kind of feel like when you watch skating live, it's such a different experience to what you get on television, right?
Yeah.
And what we saw on TV, if we go into our own sort of personal comments, that she was a little bit trippy.
Well, I was surprised she got tens across the board, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I think, we have seen Michaela do routines where she should have got tens across the board and she didn't. And then tonight, she got tens across the board. And you're right, I'd forgotten there were a couple of trips in there. I think she started up, it was very brave actually, because she came out of the tunnel by herself, no sign of Mark, and skated the entire first part of the routine by herself. Now, everybody else came out with their partner, which is almost kind of like a little bit of a warm-up. You've got your partner with you, and then the partner kind of drifts off. It's like when you learn to ride a bike with stabilizers on it or training wheels on it, and somebody runs along the side of you, and then they let go, and you don't really know when they've let go of you because they're behind you. And that's how I felt like the boys did their solo routines. They skated with their training wheels or their partners, and then the partner let go and kind of drifted off, but stayed there within eyesight and actually could speak to them through it. But Michaela came out of the tunnel all by herself, as the song suggested, and did this amazing piece. It was very brave. Did it backfire? Perhaps a little bit, because that's a big, bold, statement to make. And I think that probably is what tripped up. She probably got out there, realized what a lonely place it was, realized that friends and family are watching her, that, millions of people are watching her. And it probably just kind of shocked her a little bit, because I just felt like her head went a tiny bit. And that's where we saw the trips and the stumbles.
Very brave to start off by herself. It was a glorious opening to the routine, though, until I think she started to execute some of the moves. And then you could tell like she had that performance face on, like she is a trained dancer, so she knows how to hide it. But what you can't hide is what happens with your skates. And I kind of felt like she got a little bit away from her skates.
Agree with you. And I think, that comes down to the mental aspect of skating. People consistently look at the physical aspect of skating, or the characterization, or the acting, or the storytelling. But people forget that this is a sport, and it's difficult, and it's always there to trip you up. And it's a mental game. You have to be able to tell your body what to do at every single moment. You can't check out for a second and go into acting, character, storytelling mode unless your body knows exactly what it's doing, and your brain has to be there switched on at all times. And I felt like she had a little moment where she kind of got lost in the moment and had to snap herself back in. And I'm not sure she really did snap herself back in until Mark came and got hold of her and kind of just gave her that jolt of like, hey, I'm here for you. Let's go now.
Yeah, totally. And then to end it all off, I thought I was seeing things when they started to skate into that final position. And there was confetti. I thought it was like a superimposed effect on the television. And I was like, wait, they're still skating and there is confetti falling from the sky. That is so dangerous. And they hadn't stopped skating yet, and there was confetti falling.
It was terrifying, actually. Yeah, absolutely awful. I don't know if that maybe somebody gave the cue too soon and it was meant to come down later at the end of the routine, but you're right, that was absolutely terrifying. I think with confetti, because it's very light, it takes a while to fall into shots. So the production team were probably trying to cue it up on the rehearsals as at which point do we drop the confetti so that it hits the screen at the right point that Mark and Michaela have stopped skating. But that to me felt a tad early. It made me very nervous.
Oh, you...
Did we talk about as well the fact that Michaela did a 2-foot spin and not a 1-foot spin?
No, we didn't. Yes.
Well, let's talk about the fact that Michaela did a 2-foot spin and not a 1-foot spin. Now, I think it is good that she got all the elements, but I believe that they stipulated it was a 1-foot spin, or did they just say it was a spin that you had to do?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I'm not sure. I don't think it was verbatim 1-foot spin. It said a spin with 2 revolutions.
Okay, well, in that case, she executed it perfectly, but she was on 2 feet, whereas all of the boys, I think, managed to hit. Well, Dan was a bit hit and miss, but he was trying for the 1-foot spin.
Yeah, for sure. So there we go. There was your semifinalists all wrapped up. We have a look at that leaderboard. Michaela and Mark were on top there with 49. Sam and Molly, 48.5. Anton and Annette, 45 points. Dan and Vanessa at the bottom there with 43.5. And then the votes opened up. Dun, dun, dun. Then we had the pleasure of having 2 professional pieces in the voting number. First up, the British men's champion, Ed Appleby, who has qualified for the World Championships in a couple of weeks in Boston. And I think you may be interviewing him this week, Frankie?
Yeah, that's right, folks. Stay tuned. We have a very special bonus edition this week where I will be chatting to Ed and talking all about his career to date and his journey to Worlds, and of course the all-important Europeans next year, which should be taking place in Sheffield. I look forward to speaking to the talent of tomorrow.
And his performance was great. You can tell that he's a competitor, right? They have a different level of performance than professional skaters, because if you guys he's still considered amateur, even though they can make money and things like that. But there's still 2 pretty distinct sections within figure skating of the amateurs as opposed to the professionals. But it was great to see, the double axel that he did. His spins are amazing. It looked like I think he did a triple Lutz, but I couldn't quite tell because the camera shot was so far away. But that's
I have to say, normally our camera shots are pretty good, but I don't know what happened there, but I didn't enjoy the performance from a camera point of view because it was kind of all over the place. It was making me a bit dizzy. I don't know how people at home felt about it. He's an incredible skater, and his performance, no doubt, was spot on. But yeah, the way it was filmed was a little bit off, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. And then we had diversity.
Do you know what? I have to say, thank you, Diversity, for bringing Crimea River to the screens again. But I have to say, I've been quite touched this year because this entire series, I think every single episode has had one of my ex routines in it. So I've had this entire journey, this entire throwback, and I've been able to relive all these great memories because every single week I have heard or seen a routine that I have done in the past. And so I have to say, thank you, Dancing on Ice, for this Frankie tribute. For the Frankie tribute show. There's been at least one and sometimes even two pieces. And this week we had two pieces. We had, obviously, the first piece was the Queen one that we spoke about that Sam and Molly skated to, which was I Want to Break Free. And then they followed up with Diversity Crimea River. I was in heaven.
Well, you have been on the show for however many seasons and however many finals. And you think about, especially back in the day when we would do 12 weeks, right?
Yeah.
So you could potentially have had 12 to 13, maybe even 14 performances in one series.
Yeah, it's been bonkers, this series. I feel like they've just literally thrown it back to maybe the heydays of Dancing on Ice, really, because I think we were getting like 10, 12 million viewers. And I think a lot of those viewers, those diehard fans that are still with Dancing on Ice, will have recognized a lot of these routines. And it brought back a lot of Dancing on Ice nostalgia. So I have to say thank you for skating to Crimea River tonight, because that was probably one of my most favorite routines that I ever did.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, and I have to say, Ashley Banjo knows how to choreograph.
He is fire. Oh my, that man is a real talent when it comes to choreography. Incredible. And creativity.
It was so amazing to see them work on the ice, work on the water, work on the stage, the flips, the tricks. And then you had some of the professional ice skaters who just...
Well, no, because I know what you're going to say, because you touched on this earlier when you said ice skaters can't dance. And we know that. And I know that because I did The Masked Dancer and it was really hard. But yeah, I think it doesn't quite translate in the same way, does it? We didn't actually need them, I don't think, really. And also we didn't need, because it was a brilliant routine. I mean, the water tank that they had on there and the guys were splashing around and there was flips and there was tricks and there was spinning on their back. I mean, some real proper breakdancing move, which I love to see, and some real innovative things that we haven't seen before. It was black and white. It was really thematic. It was very, very striking in its look. But I think there were just the one part, if I was going to criticize anything, and it's hard because it was a great routine, was when the skaters started pushing the dancers around on those platforms, and that just lost me. I was like, we didn't need that.
Well, because you can't push a platform and make it look good.
No, it's never elegant. You're just basically a prop pusher at this point.
Yeah. So I think, as incredible as it was, I think the skating wasn't needed. And I understand it's Dancing on Ice, and we need to have skating. And to see Perry back on the ice was amazing. That kid is he should have been a competitive ice skater, because he just would have excelled so well. So it was great to see him back on the ice, but maybe
we could have just had him.
Yeah, just leave the skaters to do skating formations as opposed to choreography in front of incredible dancers. It just was, I don't know.
Well, it's like asking dancers to skate in front of incredible skaters. Like, dancers can't skate, skaters can't dance, and that's okay. We're two separate, completely different creatures.
Totally. And it's not taking anything away from either one of them. It's just they don't mix very well. How about that?
Yeah. Can I say, on a positive note, this new format where they do the VTs before the finalists, before the competitors skate the skate off. So you get a little like complete package of their journey so far. Obviously, with Anton, we've seen it 3 times already. And they've been different each time, but obviously we've seen a lot of him now because he's been in the skate off 3 times. But I like it. I like that we get to see this sort of, it's almost like a goodbye reel before they skate, because actually once they've skated and the decision's been made, that's the end of it. And we don't, sometimes we hardly get to hear anything from them. So I actually really like that. So well done, production, for introducing that format.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a bit of a throwback to remember when we would stand at the kiss and cry when you would get voted off with your celebrity and they would play the best bits.
Yeah.
And
that was after the skate. And I like that this is before the skate.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. Yeah. No, it's a nice little element. Plus, it gives you a kind of gives you a minute to get your feet underneath you if you're in that. So I will say that part of the format of playing that video back is great, but I don't know if I enjoy the chat before.
No, we don't need that. Do you know what? That's terrifying for a competitor. And actually, I don't think it's very productive, because when you've done your routine the first time, you know what mistakes you made. And in your head backstage, you should have been working through it again to make sure that if you are in the skate off, and let's face it, this week there was a 50-50 chance of being in the skate off. So everybody backstage should have been working on that routine again, figuring out what they did wrong. But then to have the judges pipe up and say, hey, why don't you do this for me? No, because you shouldn't throw that at a competitor right before they're about to skate again. It's very off-putting. And that is exactly what happened with Antoinette. And for those of you at home, spoiler alert, it was Danessa versus Antoinette. Dan and Vanessa versus Anton and Annette in the skate off tonight.
Yeah. And Dan skated first. And again, I just can't fault him on his crossovers. His basic skating is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Posture as well is beautiful.
Yeah. However, I think the fire went out, especially in that performance.
Did he fall off his spin again? I felt like he fell off his spin. It was weird the way that the camera angle was coming in. I couldn't quite see, but to me, he fell off his spin a little bit. And I felt like Anton made a few mistakes as well, but Dan was far from flawless.
Yeah,
and perhaps that wasn't as evident to people at home.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this was the second time Dan has been in the skate off, and then with Anton, this was his third time. And it has, as he said in his VT, he knows what he needs to do now to get through that skate off. Keeping in mind that he's also an athlete, and we have talked about this so much, is like when an athlete needs to turn up the competitive heat, they know how to turn it up. And he did.
But interestingly, and I agree with you, I mean, I've always said that about Anton. I've always said that he should be able to skate his way to the final, actually. And look, skate off his way to the final, sorry, because it'd be hard to beat him. Because we talk about that final element of skating and the mental attitude, and he has that in spades. Of course, he's an athlete. Of course, he knows how to compete. But interestingly, tonight, I didn't think it was his finest performance in the skate off. And interestingly, tonight was the first time I saw him wobble in the skate off. And this was possibly his best routine. When you look at it on paper, the first time around, I thought it was brilliant. The second time around, I have to say, I think what Ash said to him right before he skated was off-putting. And I think the judges at this point should just be saying, we loved it the first time around. You know what you've got to do it for us again. They shouldn't be trying to give critiques and notes and saying, oh, bring a little bit of this or bring a little of that and go out and own it. Because if that was my skating partner or my professional partner that somebody had said that to, I would be furious. And backstage, I'd be like, please don't do that. You've put them off. When Annette came out after the skate off to take their final bow as the finalist, she was crying because she knew they were very close to losing that. Yeah, she was really upset. And I would have been upset as well if somebody would have said to my celebrity partner right before they skated, if they'd given them a note, I would have been furious.
And the reason...
And we know Frankie can get furious.
Now, the reason why that is dangerous is because it puts a little bug in your ear. It can create...
And then it becomes just your sole focus. That's all you think about. And then actually you have a lot to think about, particularly on solo week. Don't do that.
Yeah. Well, and not just on solo week, but keeping in mind what these celebs are doing is very dangerous. All of the lifts that they have to do, especially Anton, when he puts Annette up over her head, he needs to be so hyper-focused on that. And if he's thinking about, oh gosh, Ashley just told me to do better performance or give a better performance, that's going to throw you off. And you're right. You're absolutely right. I think that's why I kind of mentioned a couple minutes ago is that I don't necessarily agree with that chat. Because It's counterproductive. It might be great for
No.
TV, but it's counterproductive for the athlete. Yeah. And the skate off was really close. I didn't know what they were going to do. I felt that Anton did give a better performance to Dan, but you can't really compare the two because one was a ballad and the other one was this, dance piece. So I honestly didn't know what they were going to do. And yes, the judges did vote unanimous for Anton. The underdog makes the final.
Well, congratulations, Anton and Annette. I think it was controversial this week. I have to say, I've been the biggest cheerleaders for Antoinette since day one. I think they've stolen skating fans' hearts, and rightly so. And I think Anton is coming across as this most wonderful, heartwarming soul. However, I'm not sure I would have put them through this week based solely on the skate-off performance. Based on the first performance that they did, 100% all day long. Based on the skate-off performance, no, I wouldn't have put them through. And I thought it was controversial that across the board, every single person put them through. There were a lot of trips, a lot of mistakes, particularly towards the end, particularly in his solo piece. When he went for the header, he tripped. Even at the end of the routine, he was still skating. Anton knows, because he's a competitor, he would agree with me. Anton knows that was barely the performance that should have gone through. It only just made the grade. And I was surprised that each and every single judge voted them through unanimously. And he will be surprised too. And this is no disrespect to Anton. He's a great athlete. So he knows that he could have done a lot better in that second time around.
Interesting. I disagree with you on that. I felt that Dan's performance to me just was like he gave up.
Yeah.
It was slow. It was not even as fast as the first time around. I felt bad for him that I shouldn't say I felt bad for him, but I just felt like he just was like, okay, it's my time to go home. Like he kind of gave up. And it was so freaking close that maybe if he would have just given an extra 10% and lent into Vanessa and what we know how good Vanessa is, if he would have just lent into that a little bit more, I mean, it could have gone the other way for him. I don't know. Very interesting.
That's the difference between an athlete and a non-athlete coming to competition, coming to real head-to-head competition. An athlete is not going to let that get in the way. He's still going to try his best. In this case with Anton, I think he tried a little bit too hard. Whereas with Dan, I think, like you said, he already thought, that's it, I'm going home.
Well, congratulations, Dan and Vanessa. A fantastic series for you both. I loved every single number that you guys did. Vanessa, you are just a force to be reckoned with. I can't wait to see what comes next for you in your professional career with Eric. And Dan, thank you. I've thoroughly enjoyed every minute.
And congratulations to our 3 finalists. So we have Michaela, last woman standing. We've got Sam and we've got Anton. And we are so looking forward to your performances, your final performances next week.
Well, thank you, as always, for watching us, for listening to us. Make sure that you watch out for the lookbook with Frankie and Alex later on this week, where they are going to be breaking down all of the costumes, the makeup looks. Frankie does tutorials sometimes on how to achieve the look that you may have seen on Dancing on Ice. And then, as well, watch out for, in the very near future, an interview with Ed Appleby that Frankie's going to be sitting down with and chatting. He is the UK British champion that was featured on Dancing on Ice this evening. So make sure that you guys like, subscribe, drop in those comments. We read them, we like them, and I can't wait for next week. It's going to be sad, but it's the final.
It's going to be sad if it's the very last Dancing on Ice ever, if the rumours are true. It's also going to be sad because it's the end of the series, but it has been a great series.
It has been an incredible series, probably one of my most favorite. And while we say goodbye, I'm going to cut into this freaking cake because...
So, what kind is it? I'm salivating over my own birthday cake that I don't get to eat.
It's carrot.
Oh, I love carrot cake.
Oh, that's why I got it.
It's got frost. It's got the frosting on it, hasn't it?
I'll tell you what it's like.
This could be a whole new podcast series for us. We could just go around tasting cakes. Honestly, we would gain like 500 pounds and I'd be so happy. I'd be the happiest I've ever been in my life.
It's
good, isn't it? Look at your face.
Good.
I'm so devastatingly sad that you are eating my birthday cake in front of me and enjoying it so much. This is possibly the lowest of the low, the cruelest of the cruel. Not to mention I'm 52 as well.
And hungover.
Hungover.
All right, you
Speaking of
guys.
which.
Thank you so much for watching, for listening. We will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.